Welcome to the Franciscan Spirituality Center in La Crosse, Wisconsin's What is Spirituality podcast. Your host, Steve Spildy, is the Associate Director at the Center. His guests talk about their evolving understanding of God, prayer, healing, and wholeness.
My name is Steve Spildy, and today I'm joined by Sister Mary Kathryn Fogarty. Welcome, Mary Kathryn.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet with you. I've known you for 7 or 8 years. I started getting involved here at the Franciscan Spirituality Center, and you were on staff as one of the spiritual directors. Let's start by having you describe your understanding of what spiritual direction is.
I would say listening.
Okay.
Maybe listening at the heart level, from that space, from the heart space.
How long have you been doing spiritual direction?
I actually started probably in the mid-'70s doing spiritual direction. Then I was in leadership for a while, and during that time, that was like 8 years, I didn't do spiritual direction.
Do you remember the first time you received spiritual direction?
Yes, it probably was when I made a directed retreat in Prairie du Chien. That was the beginning after that then.
What was your expectation of what it was going in, and then maybe how was it different perhaps than what you expected?
I don't know that I really had any expectations. I don't think I even knew exactly what I was doing, but I had good spiritual directors who, helped me to share about my life and soul work.
Was that challenging for you, or
being a spiritual director, or receiving it? Probably because I'm not as articulate about things, and I'm pretty introverted from that point of view. So they probably had to work harder, just to, invite me to reflect on things. Wasn't hard reflecting, but articulating the reflection was often difficult for me.
But then you became a spiritual director and really worked at listening to others in a deep way. Was that more natural for you?
Yes, by all means, yes. And I would say, again, we all find, our identity, how we are as spiritual directors. I definitely, even in working with people in the program, the spiritual direction program, I don't say a lot, I'm doing spiritual direction. I can wait a long time.
Were you comfortable with that from the beginning, or did you have to become more comfortable?
No, I think from the very beginning I was more that way. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would say, again, it was a learning for me. I was definitely more comfortable just listening, but I also had to learn that the work was not mine to do. It was really God's to do, and not getting too anxious about the movements.
Have you always been like that? Have you always been a good listener, even when you were young?
Probably. Probably.
The family you were born into, can you describe that for me?
Okay, we were people of the land because we were, farm family, very stable family, hardworking, and lots of extended family because a lot of the families, my father's side of the family, there was a large family and they all pretty much lived around where I lived. So
which was in Iowa?
In West Bend, Iowa. Mm-hmm. And good neighbors, just really good people. It's just kind of like I lived in surrounded by goodness, really. And I think we were, I come by it naturally, but most of my family is quite quiet. Mm-hmm. I like to read. My father liked to read, and it just wasn't a lot of noise in my growing up. And then the other thing that on weekends and during the summer vacations, Christmas vacations, I stayed with my grandmother, who at the time would have been probably in her 80s.
Okay.
And she was very quiet. And, of course, I think now that I'm, at the age I am, she couldn't hear. And so why would she want to have a conversation? Mm-hmm. It's and I just loved it because, of course, I liked the quiet. I liked to read. She liked to read.
How many How many kids were in your family growing up?
Oh, 6 of us, and I'm the oldest one.
Okay.
And we're spread out because my youngest sister, I had already left home before my youngest sister was born. So 6 is not that many to be spread out over 18 years.
The image I'm getting, your whole family was pretty reserved, kind of, the atmosphere was introverts.
Yeah, yeah.
Describe your family's relationship with faith growing up.
Oh, yeah, very faithful. My parents would have been, just kind of pillars of the church, if you want to use that terminology. My grandmother was the same way. So, yeah, very faithful. And, of course, when you live on the land, you pray because everything is so dependent on God for rain and good weather and good crops.
In your earliest memories, what was your image of God?
That's a good question. I don't know if I had, I don't know if I had an image of God, but I think it would have been around the land. Mm-hmm. God was probably the weather person in our house, just good weather. So I don't, image of God. I don't remember an image that I had.
Did you go to parochial school growing up?
I did for grade school, and then high school. We didn't have a parochial school for high school, but my grade school years were with the Catholic school. Eucharist every day, it was part of our day. And my grandmother was also that way, Eucharist. So summer vacations, weekends, we went to Mass every day.
Was that a positive memory, or were there...
Nope, positive.
Okay.
Very positive, yes. And there again, it fit with, it was quiet and I suppose ritual. And at that time it was Latin. So, of course, I didn't even, we had a prayer book. We read it in English. But so, yeah, what would you call that, I think? Kind of like, it's so mysterious. I didn't even understand the language. Yeah.
But you were intrigued by the mystery?
I think so, yeah. Or I was comfortable with it. I didn't.
Yeah. When did the thought of becoming a sister enter your consciousness?
Actually, probably my junior year of high school.
Okay.
I don't remember in grade school that I thought about it. But the reason I really started thinking about it was because I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
And the only people I knew that were teachers, not for just a couple of years, but for life, were the sisters. Okay. I always say I didn't realize that I would maybe have to love Jesus in this process. I just wanted to be a teacher. Yeah. That was what really drew me to religious life.
And your sisters, when you were young, wore the habit? And
yes, yes, yeah, until in the 60s, I think, probably mid-60s, or a little after that.
So you wore the habit for a few years?
Probably about 10.
Okay.
And religious life fit me. I came from a family of, where it was quiet, and so I fell right into it, and I was at home immediately.
And they were honored by you becoming a sister, and you got encouragement with that?
In my family?
Yeah.
I don't know that. Nobody ever really talked about that, about that part of it. We didn't have sisters in our family, so it wasn't like they probably didn't even quite know what I was doing. But that would have been typical of us.
At that age, when you were like a junior or senior in high school, if someone had asked you, why are you becoming a sister, what would your answer have been?
I want to be a teacher.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think I even told anybody except maybe my mom and dad, but I don't think I told any of my classmates or anything like that. So I doubt they even knew I was going.
In those days, too, you came here to La Crosse.
Yes.
And it would be like other people graduate from high school and they go off to college. You graduate from high school and you came here to...
Yeah, that's right. And in the fall, when everybody else was going to college.
Did you start at Viterbo at the same time?
Yes, that in the fall.
Okay.
And it was an all-girls school at that time, and most of us were sisters, or part of the community.
Okay. So a big portion of the student body were sisters.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know when they opened it up to lay women, but there weren't that many lay women, in the beginning. But there again, a lot of young women at that age or at that time didn't go to college either.
Yeah. So at that point in your life, early in college, how did you understand God? Or if I'd ask, what's your image of God, how would you describe that?
Probably would have had something to do with Eucharist and comfort, maybe, at homeness. But there again, an image, I'm just not sure, that I had an image of God. But a feeling, I would say probably comfort, home, that sense of God, community, really. And like I say, I was, not everybody had that experience, but for me it was just like, I loved it. I was just, this was great.
Did people use the term spirituality when you were that age?
No. No.
If someone had asked you, did that word mean anything? I mean, what are some of the meanings that word might have held then?
Then, at that time, if somebody had said spirituality, probably it would have been prayer. That might have been it. Prayer, devotions, some of those kinds of things. Yep. I think that would have probably been it. I wouldn't have known.
There wasn't much of a distinction between spirituality and religion, was there?
No. Religion was considered, it was considered religion. Yeah. Where nobody talked about it. And what we learned even is in the classes that, about becoming a woman religious, even that was a lot about rules, the rules and the regulations and the doctrine, the dogmas. We didn't learn a lot about, not even much about prayer. Our prayer was pretty much rote and out of a book.
As you think about how your understanding of spirituality has changed throughout your life, what were some early moments or from that point forward, some important moments where that started to change and evolve?
Probably in my mid-30s, and it was retreats. I went on my first directed retreat. Prior to that, it always just been, in community preached retreats. We didn't have directed retreats. That was definitely a changing point for me. Now my experience of Christ and God was personal. It was a personal relationship now. So that was for sure one of those moments. And then that would have been in the mid-70s. The community asked me to, about, I think, maybe 6 or 7 of us, if we would make a 30-day retreat, and the purpose being then that we would become spiritual directors and give retreats or spiritual direction.
For someone who has not been on retreat, when you use the term directed retreat, what does that look like?
I would not use that unless, we'd have to talk about what the retreat's going to be. What is a retreat and what do they understand by it.
What did your first directed retreat look like? What were kind of the boundaries of that?
Oh, it was amazing. I had a Jesuit priest that was giving the retreat, and because we were making the retreat, but then he was also teaching us, because of course that was part of it. So we'd always have a class every day around the Ignatian exercises. So there were some things that I was really good at. There were some things I couldn't figure out, just in the whole thing of even my own prayer time. But there was so much grace and so much gift in the whole thing that, again, it just was my cup of tea. I didn't have to talk to people.
So directed retreat, kind of the standard understanding is you go away for silence, and then once a day you meet with a spiritual director, correct?
That's right. That's what I would say. And you have prayer times. Yeah, like guided prayer times by the director.
So for you, that was a fish to water.
Oh, my. I loved it. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
But it sounds like in those periods of silence, you had a more direct experience of God. Is that fair?
Yes, for sure. And I learned about prayer. Like I hadn't learned a lot about prayer, but I think that was when I really began to learn about various ways of prayer. That was helpful to me.
And this was in preparation for you becoming a director so you could lead other people on retreat.
That was the intent of the community, yes, because we just didn't have any. We hadn't done this before, and so we didn't have people.
Was this at the time of Vatican II?
Yes, it would have been after Vatican II, but yeah.
So you were getting an invitation to do more retreats.
Right, yes, and none of us were prepared. That was the community's attempt at just moving this forward. So that would have probably been in 75, well, maybe 76. So then this preparation program began like 9 years later.
So you went through a program to learn how to be a spiritual director for other people. And then there was the invitation to create the Franciscan Spirituality Center so that you could first train the sisters to do that, correct?
Right.
And then eventually open the doors to people
To
from the
other
community.
people. Yes. So it grew out of Vatican II. The whole thing grew out of Vatican II, and how did we respond to what were now the needs that we had? Of the group that was there with me, maybe 3 of us actually continued on in doing spiritual direction. I don't think the others did.
Well, you described that was really natural for you to be a listener. What were some of the skills that you had to refine, though, to become better as a spiritual director?
Probably learn ways of inviting people to share more on their feelings, and maybe for people that were really very verbal, having to slow them down, learn how to slow them down, invite them to reflection. And always I had to keep coming back to, this is the work between God and that soul, not my job. So always having to remind myself that it's not my job to change them or to save them or to let God directly work with them. And how did I help facilitate that?
Sounds like that was more natural to you than being a teacher. I mean, contrast those experiences.
Yes. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And I love teaching, actually. I did like teaching. I didn't do it very long. The community probably knew better what I needed to do than what I thought I wanted to do.
From the early days of the Spirituality Center until now, would you say your understanding of spirituality has evolved?
Definitely. But, like when I came here, by the time I came to in 88 to the Spirituality Center, I had pretty well, figured out religion and spirituality and the difference there. And I had been at Berkeley for, I think, 2 years, and did a lot of study around spirituality. And and then, I was pretty eclectic there. So when I came here, like a lot of the programs we had they were just really geared to spirituality. The sister who was the director before, really worked with parishes. And so it was more what today we'd call it the RCIA type of thing. And probably not as much around just spirituality. So it was much more connected to religion. I had pretty much come to an understanding what I thought spirituality was, and it was not religion. It was much broader than that.
What are the elements of spirituality in your mind?
It was larger than a church. It encompassed much more creation and body and spirit, community some, but it wasn't instruction as much as getting in touch with the spirit, I suppose you could say.
I don't want to put my words into your mouth. As I listen to you, I hear it being more of a full body experience. It's not just an experience of your mind,
yes,
but it's
by all means, yes.
Your emotions, where you feel it in your body, what movements enhance that connection.
Yes. And that God's present in all of it, that not just in a building or a church or the doctrines of that. Yeah, so it was, it just was much more life-giving, I think, for the people that came here also. It responded to their desires and needs, too.
helping people connect to their understanding of God or their experience of God?
I think with all of us, like we first have to get in touch with ourselves before we can have that experience of being although, there again, grace can do all kinds of things without us. But I think for in the beginning, I think what I would have said is most of us that were coming here were the desire to first get in touch with ourselves and the experience of the divine. Can't make that happen unless it just, no matter what you do, it has to, it has to come out of, has to be their experience.
So as I listen to you, my sense is of you as a spiritual director is really entering into their experience and trying to see things through their eyes. Is that a fair description?
That would be fair, yes. And just to facilitate it, empower them, trust their experience, whatever that is, and whoever their God is, because that's probably also something I always had to remember is, check in who's their God, not because it's not my God. Mine is mine and yours is yours.
How would you describe that now?
Oh, now I don't even know who God is. So I would just, it's such a mystery, isn't it? Oh, yeah, it's just such a mystery, yeah. I sense presence, and sometimes when I'm walking around, it's kind of like, there's a presence within, surrounding me, too. Yeah. So, I didn't have an image when I was a child, and I don't have one now.
But you can feel a presence now that you couldn't feel then.
Yeah, of course, as a child. I might have felt it, but didn't know what I was, didn't name it.
Is that part of what you do as a spiritual director then, to help people verbalize their sense of presence, or?
However they, whatever they name,
okay.
They name that. How are you experiencing that, or how is that person experiencing it? And how we're all so different and so unique in that experience of presence for somebody else, the experience of God, or however they name it.
Has that been, that sense of uniqueness, has that been part of your journey of identifying your own uniqueness and kind of embracing that?
I think so. I actually, again, I got so much help from community and their trust. Really, their trust in asking me what to do this or to do that. I would never have done those things myself. It just wouldn't have come into my mind.
So they saw giftedness in you, and
and they mentored me so well in so many things, and I've had many wonderful experiences. So I think that certainly helped with my being able to claim who I am, claim my uniqueness. And there again, I don't think I think about that, but again, I live a very lovely life. And it's just wonderful, from the point of view. And I think that's been my experience in community. I'm just very blessed.
My sense, though, of the community has shifted in that understanding, too, because like when you first came, people wearing habits.
Oh, yeah.
The formation was much more.
Yeah, I think, again, much more around rules and regulations, because that changed after Vatican. Vatican II. It broadened out. So, it's that changed, all of that. But there again, I didn't mind the other either. It's kind of like, well, one of the things I always used to say, and again, that's probably just a part of who I am. They say that, well, now you have to do this. I would do it, but I'd say to myself, this really is kind of ridiculous, but I could do it. I didn't fight it. And I know some of the women that were with me, they made their life miserable because of the resistance to it. That didn't bother. I could do it, even if I thought it was kind of stupid. And there were things, that were, why are we doing this? But again, it's like we've always done this. This is how we do it.
As I listen to you, what I hear is over time, spirituality has become more personal.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And more authentic to who you are. I mean, I also hear kind of a growing sense of grace that you're like, it's going to happen with or without me, so I might as well join the flow.
Right, yeah. Yeah, grace is big, I think, and that's that presence, too.
Okay.
I think there's just really, I have lived a very full and blessed life. And I'm always grateful for that. I mean, it's just... and I don't have a worry. I have no worries. So well taken care of, yes, but no.
And thank you for the influence you've been on me and hundreds of people who have come through the Spiritual Direction Preparation Program.
Yeah.
That sense of trust, that sense of gratitude, and helping people to find their own story.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
If you have any questions about any of the programs that they offer at the Franciscan Spirituality Center in La Crosse, Wisconsin, we invite you to call us at 608-791-5295. That's 608-791-5295. You can also visit our website at www.fscenter.org. www.fscenter.org. Thank you for listening.